They called him dumb. They laughed when the teacher dismissed him. But what happened next silenced the entire room and turned humiliation into triumph. In every classroom, there are lessons written on the board, but sometimes the real lesson comes from the students themselves. This is the story of a boy they called dumb, a boy humiliated in front of his peers. But in seconds, he revealed a brilliance so undeniable, it shook the entire room. This isn't just about equations. It's about truth, dignity, and the power to rise when the world expects you to fall. The classroom clock ticked too loud. Each second echoed against the chipped paint walls, a rhythm of impatience that no one seemed to notice, except Marcus. He sat in the back row, shoulders hunched, notebook open but nearly blank. His pencil tapped against the desk, not in boredom, but in thought. He was 13, tall for his age, with eyes that carried more weight than a boy should have to carry. The teacher, Mr. Whitman, cleared his throat from the front of the room. He was a man who carried himself like authority was stitched into his very skin. Every word he spoke felt like a command. Every glance he gave felt like a judgment. "All right, class," Whitman said, pacing slowly. "Today we're continuing with algebraic functions. For some of you, this will be simple. For others," his eyes flicked across the room until they landed on Marcus. "Well, we'll see how far we get." A low ripple of laughter traveled through the class. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He looked down, scribbling a meaningless line in his notebook, as if the act of writing could make him invisible. Whitman turned to the board, chalk squealing as he wrote an equation. If y equals 2x plus 3, and you're given that x equals 5, what does y equal? Someone. Several hands shot up. Marcus didn't move. He already knew the answer. It was basic, but he'd learned something about raising his hand in Whitman's class. It rarely ended well. Whitman called on a girl in the front row. She answered correctly. He praised her. Then he scanned the room again, eyes narrowing. "Marcus," he said, voice sharp like a gavel, "why don't you try the next one?" Marcus lifted his gaze slowly, as though it weighed pounds. "Yes, sir." Whitman scribbled another problem. This one longer, with fractions stacked like hurdles. "Solve for x." He capped the chalk with a smugness Marcus recognized. This wasn't an invitation to learn. It was a trap. The classroom leaned in. Some kids smirked. Others waited silently, the way an audience waits before a magician pulls the curtain. Marcus studied the equation. He could solve it. He wanted to. But the heat in his chest grew, anger, humiliation, a familiar mix that blurred his thoughts. His lips parted, but before he could speak, Whitman shook his head. "Never mind. This is too much for you," Whitman said. "We'll give it to someone else. You're not ready for this level of thinking." The words landed like stones. "Not ready. Too much for you." Marcus lowered his eyes again, but his ears rang. He could hear the whispers. He could feel the smacks pressing against the back of his neck. Dumb. Slow. That's what they thought. That's what Whitman wanted them to think. But deep inside Marcus, something sharp flickered. Not just shame. Not just anger. Something else. A refusal. Because the truth was, Marcus wasn't dumb. He wasn't slow. He had a mind that worked in ways even he didn't fully understand yet. Numbers spoke to him. Equations weren't walls, they were doors. And while Whitman saw a boy who didn't belong, Marcus knew he was standing on the edge of something Whitman couldn't see. But in that moment, with 30 pairs of eyes watching and a teacher's dismissal ringing in his ears, Marcus stayed quiet. He swallowed it. He let the class move on. Yet a story like this never ends in silence. It starts here, yes, with injustice. With a man calling a black boy dumb in front of a room full of witnesses. But what's coming next isn't silence. It's revelation. Because Marcus was about to show them all. The bell rang an hour later. The students spilled out into the hallway, voices bouncing like tennis balls against lockers. Marcus walked slower than the rest. His head was down, but his mind was alive, replaying every word. Too much for you. Not ready for this level of thinking. He passed two boys laughing, imitating Whitman's tone. "Marcus, why don't you try?" "Oh wait, never mind." Their laughter cut like glass. Marcus kept walking. He'd learned not to give them the satisfaction of a reaction. When he stepped outside, the autumn air hit him. Crisp. Sharp. He breathed deep, letting it cool the fire in his chest. He needed that walk home, needed the quiet streets lined with trees, needed the way the neighborhood smelled faintly of barbecue even in October. At the corner store, Mrs. Thompson waved from behind the counter. "Hey, baby. How was school?" Marcus forced a smile. It was all right. She saw through him. She always did. But she let him be. By the time he got home, his little sister was already at the kitchen table coloring. His mom, still in her scrubs from the night shift at the hospital, leaned against the counter with a cup of coffee. "How was class?" she asked. Marcus hesitated. His mom didn't need more weight on her shoulders. She worked too hard already, holding the family together with sheer will. But when she looked at him with those tired, loving eyes, the words slipped out. "Mr. Whitman called me dumb," Marcus said softly. The air shifted. His sister stopped coloring. His mom set down her cup. "What?" she said, steady but sharp. "He didn't say it like that. But he gave me a problem, then told me I wasn't ready for it. In front of everybody." His mom closed her eyes, just for a second. When she opened them, they were fierce. "Marcus, listen to me. You are not dumb. Do you hear me?" He nodded, but it wasn't enough. She stepped closer, put her hands on his shoulders. "You are brilliant. You've always been brilliant. Don't you let anyone tell you otherwise. That man doesn't know you. He doesn't see you. But I do. And I know what you're capable of." Marcus swallowed hard. The lump in his throat burned. I hate that they all laughed." His mom pulled him close. "Then show them. Show them what you've got. Don't fight with your fists. Fight with your mind. That's the battle you're built for." Those words sank deep, like seeds in fertile soil. Marcus didn't know it yet, but this was the moment that would grow roots, the moment he would return to when the world tried again to shrink him. That night, he sat at the kitchen table long after his sister went to bed. Pages filled with equations stretched in front of him. He wasn't doing homework anymore. He was sharpening something. Preparing for the day he would turn silence into revelation. And that day was closer than anyone expected. The next morning, the air in room 204 felt heavy, as if the walls themselves had absorbed what happened yesterday and were eager for a sequel. Marcus walked in, backpack slung low, eyes scanning the seats. The laughter had died down overnight, but memory doesn't leave that quickly. A few kids smirked when they saw him. Others avoided his gaze. Whitman was already at the board, writing problems with deliberate strokes, like a judge preparing a sentence before the trial even began. Marcus took his seat in the back. He could feel the weight of expectation pressing down. Not the expectation to succeed, but to fail. "Settle down," Whitman said without looking at them. "Today we're moving forward. I expect everyone to keep up." He turned suddenly, eyes locking on Marcus. "Even you." A chuckle rose from somewhere in the middle row. Marcus's pencil froze mid-spin between his fingers. Whitman began again, stacking equations like bricks. His tone was clipped, his pace quick. Every so often, he'd glance toward Marcus as if daring him to fall behind. "Now, who can solve this system of equations?" Whitman asked, writing two linear equations side by side. Hands shot up. Marcus stayed still. His mind was already moving, already mapping out the solution. But he had learned restraint. Whitman chose another student, praised their method, then moved on. It was a rhythm: ask, call, praise, move. And yet, every third or fourth question, his eyes drifted toward Marcus, never calling on him, just watching, almost daring him to insert himself. Finally, Whitman set down the chalk and folded his arms. "You know what? Let's test something." Marcus, front of the class. A hush fell. Heads turned. Some students smiked, others widened their eyes. The spectacle had begun. Marcus rose slowly. Each step forward sounded louder than it should, the shuffle of sneakers against tile echoing. He stopped at the board. Whitman uncapped the marker with a smirk. "Solve this." The equation sprawled across the board like a beast with too many heads. Quadratics woven with fractions, decimals stacked on exponents. It wasn't impossible, but it was designed to intimidate. Marcus stared. His brain began to sift. Piece by piece, he broke the problem down, numbers clicking into place like tumblers in a lock. But before he could write, Whitman leaned close, voice low but sharp enough for the room to hear. Don't overthink it. Sometimes it's better not to embarrass yourself. The words dug deep. Laughter bubbled from the back. Marcus froze. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because he knew every move he made now would either confirm or destroy the label Whitman had stamped on him. And he wasn't ready. Not yet. He put the marker down. I don't know, he muttered. Whitman smiled. Not kind. Not patient. Triumphant. That's what I thought, he said. He turned back to the class. All right, someone else show us how it's done. Marcus walked back to his seat, heat crawling up his neck. He heard the whispers, the laughter. He felt Whitman's satisfaction, like a hand pressing him down. But inside, that flicker grew. He knew the answer. He had seen it clear as day. And he knew one thing for certain. His silence had protected Whitman's story, not his own. That night, he sat at the kitchen table again. His mother passed by, setting down a plate of cornbread beside him. She didn't ask this time. She just put a hand on his shoulder. He covered her hand with his. I had it, Mom, he whispered. I had the answer. I just didn't say it. She squeezed his shoulder. You don't owe him silence, baby. You owe yourself the truth. Next time, you let it out. Show them who you are. Her words burned brighter than the shame. And Marcus knew, the next chance he got, he wouldn't stay quiet. By Friday, the air in room 204 buzzed. Students fidgeted more than usual. Something about the end of the week, the hunger for release. Whitman stood straighter than ever, basking in his own authority. He wrote on the board again, faster this time, filling the space with variables and functions. Pop quiz, he announced. A groan filled the room. Oh, don't complain. Life is a pop quiz. He passed out papers, his footsteps sharp against the tile. When he reached Marcus, he paused. Try your best, he said, smirk curling. The quiz began. Heads bent. Pencils scratched. Marcus scanned the first question. Easy. The second, straightforward. The third, trickier, but doable. His pencil flew. Equations folded into themselves like origami. His mind moved faster than his hand could write. Halfway through, he noticed Whitman's eyes. The teacher wasn't watching the class. He was watching Marcus. Every stroke of his pencil, every pause, every furrow of his brow. Whitman wanted him to fail. No, he expected him to. And that expectation lit a fire Marcus couldn't smother. He leaned into it. Numbers lined up like soldiers. Logic snapped into place. He finished the quiz with time to spare. But he didn't turn it in. He waited until the bell rang. As students filed out, Marcus stepped forward. He placed the paper on Whitman's desk. Whitman glanced at it, dismissive. We'll see how you did. Marcus nodded. We will. Monday morning, the results came back. Whitman shuffled the graded quizzes into piles, calling names. Students groaned as they saw red marks. Finally, he held up one paper, lips pursed. Marcus. Marcus walked to the front, heart pounding. Whitman handed him the paper without looking. In bold red ink at the top corner, 100%. A hush fell. Students craned their necks. Someone whispered, no way. Marcus stood still, holding the paper like proof of something more than a grade. Proof of truth. Whitman cleared his throat. Well, congratulations. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. The word stung, but Marcus saw it. The twitch in Whitman's jaw. The crack in his armor. This wasn't supposed to happen. And Marcus knew the moment was coming. The moment where silence would break. The only question was, when? The week after the quiz results, room 204 changed. Not dramatically, but Marcus felt it. The whispers weren't the same. The laughter wasn't as sharp. A few classmates who used to smack at him now glanced his way with something closer to curiosity. Still, Whitman refused to budge. If anything, he grew colder, sharper. Grades don't tell the whole story, Whitman announced as he passed back another stack of homework. Consistency matters. Discipline matters. One good score doesn't erase a record of struggle. The words weren't aimed at the class. They were aimed at Marcus. Marcus felt the heat rise again, but this time he didn't look down. He looked back at Whitman, just for a second. Long enough to let him know, "I see what you're doing." Whitman looked away first. By Wednesday, the tension in the room was thick. The class sat in restless silence as Whitman drew an enormous equation across the board. It stretched edge to edge, a monster of nested parentheses, exponents, and fractions. "This," Whitman declared, stepping back, "is the kind of problem that separates true mathematical thinkers from the rest. Don't panic. Most of you will not solve this in under 30 minutes. But it will show me who among you is capable of higher-level reasoning." The class groaned. 30 minutes? On one problem? Whitman smiled. "Unless, of course, someone can do it faster." His eyes slid toward Marcus. It was a day. The room shifted. Heads turned. Some kids smirked again, ready for another show. Others looked nervous, as though they knew something big was about to happen. Marcus's pulse thumped. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. "Don't fight with your fists. Fight with your mind." He raised his hand. The room went silent. Whitman arched a brow. "Yes, Marcus. I'll try it." A low murmur rippled through the class. Whitman gestured toward the board. "Be my guest." Marcus walked forward, heart hammering. The markers sat on the ledge beneath the board, waiting. He picked one up and stared at the monster equation. For a second, the room faded. It was just him and the problem. His brain kicked into rhythm. Terms aligned. Exponents simplified. Fractions folded. It wasn't easy, but it was clear. He started writing. At first, the class was restless. Some whispered, some tapped pencils. But as Marcus's marker moved faster, as numbers flowed into each other with precision, the whispers died. Step by step, the monster shrank. The tangled mess untangled. His hand moved so quickly it was almost a blur. 10 minutes passed. Then 12. Finally, Marcus drew the last line. Boxed the answer. Step back. The board, once crowded with chaos, now glowed with clarity. He turned to face the class. Silence. Wide eyes. Mouths open. Someone whispered, "He finished." Whitman stepped forward slowly. His face was unreadable. He scanned the solution, line by line. His eyes darted, his jaw tightening with each step Marcus had taken. Finally, he reached the boxed answer. He froze. Because it was right. Every single step. Flawless. Whitman turned back to Marcus, but his smirk was gone. "Well," he said finally, voice thin. "It seems you've managed it." Managed it. That was all he could muster. But the class, they weren't restrained. Gasps filled the room. Then whispers. Then a ripple of laughter, not cruel this time, but stunned, impressed. "He did it in 12 minutes. Man, that's crazy. No way I could have done that." Marcus stood tall. His chest didn't burn with shame this time. It swelled with something else. Truth, undeniable and bright. Whitman tried to regain control. "All right, settle down, settle down. One good problem doesn't." But he was cut off. Because Marcus wasn't done. "Mr. Whitman," he said, voice steady but strong, "you told me last week I wasn't ready for this level of thinking. That this was too much for me." The room stilled again. Marcus held up the marker. "But I just did what you said most of the class couldn't do in 30 minutes. I did it in 12. The words weren't cocky. They were simple, honest. But they hit like thunder. The class erupted. Not with laughter at Marcus this time, but with cheers, applause, disbelief. Some slapped their desks. Others shook their heads in awe. And in that noise, Marcus stood taller. For the first time, the label wasn't his. The truth was. Whitman's face was pale, but his authority cracked. He tried to quiet the class, but his voice was lost in the roar. Finally, he barked, "Enough." The room went silent. But there. Silence wasn't his victory. It was Marcus's. Because everyone had seen it. Everyone had witnessed the reversal. The boy who was called dumb had outsmarted the entire class, his teacher included, in seconds. And no one could take that back. That night, Marcus walked home with his head higher than it had been in weeks. His sister met him at the door, eyes wide. "How was school?" Marcus smiled. "Different." His mom looked up from the stove, reading his face. "What happened?" He told her. Every detail. The equation, the 12 minutes, the class cheering. By the time he finished, her eyes glistened. "I told you," she whispered. "Brilliance. That's who you are." Marcus grinned, wider than he had in a long time. Because for once, he believed it too. The story spread through the school in days. By the end of the week, Marcus wasn't the dumb kid anymore. He was the one who beat the impossible problem. The one who shut down the teacher. The one who proved them all wrong. And the moral burned bright. Prejudice can label you, authority can belittle you. But truth has a way of breaking chains. Marcus learned something too, that silence protects the lie, but courage protects the truth. He carried that lesson for years. Through high school, through college, through every room where someone doubted him before knowing him. He carried it until it became more than a memory. It became armor. And for everyone who heard his story, the call was clear. Don't let anyone tell you what you are. Don't let prejudice script your story. Rise. Speak. Show them. Because when truth walks to the board and writes itself out for the world to see, there's no erasing it. They thought they had written his story for him. But Marcus rewrote it with courage, intelligence, and dignity. And that is the lesson we carry forward. Never let prejudice define you. Never let arrogance silence you. Speak your truth, show your brilliance, and let the world bear witness. Because justice isn't just given, it's revealed. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, and join us in uncovering unheard voices that demand to be seen and remembered. This is Unheard Evidence. Stay tuned.